Total joke. Zero chance to beat Georgia. I have no idea how Ole Miss is going to stop them. The Georgia media over the last week were as disrespectful to Ole Miss as Penn State was. And I am really, really freaking glad they got shut up.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. This is the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there, and that is all because of you. Thank you very much for that. I'm a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports, and I'm also was on staff at Ole Miss. So anybody from the dog vent that might be checking this out, yes, that means I probably do know more than you do, and this game proved that. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in America. Again, that is all because of you. On today's show, we're going to be talking about just a fantastic result to where Ole Miss put 27 points in the second half. Trinidad Chambliss went Archie Manning in New Orleans, Louisiana, and Ole Miss just completely outclassed the Georgia Bulldogs. They made plays. They have 5 stars. They're going to make plays, but they weren't as good as a team. And even they would tell you they're not as good as a team. In fact, the fluke was not what happened in the Sugar Bowl. The fluke is what happened in the fourth quarter in Athens. And even Georgia fans have to admit that. Ole Miss has the better team, and Ole Miss has the best team in the Southeastern Conference. And right now, I think Ole Miss is going to win a national championship, but maybe that's just the drama that is going on. I told you this game would look a little bit different than the last one. I told you how it was going to work out. I told you Ole Miss's defense was going to be a problem. Xavier Harris had 10 tackles in this game at a nose guard position, had 10 tackles. That's absolutely amazing stuff. The front seven won this game for Ole Miss by making Georgia one-dimensional and not able to run the football. And once you stop the run, you beat Georgia. And now Pete Golding becomes the third Ole Miss coach to beat Kirby Smart. Now Ole Miss has an all-time winning record against the gold standard of college football coaches right now. That is pretty awesome as well. We're going to talk a little bit about the Fiesta Bowl that is coming up. Ole Miss has the Miami Hurricanes, powder helmets, red jerseys, gray pants. We thought we didn't have an option. Those have to come out, right? The classics have to come out for that game. And then you have Oregon and you have Indiana in the other side of the bracket is going to happen. But right now it's all about Tempe, Arizona. I know that David Johnson's going to be heading out there with the Ole Miss 365 people, and he is going to be in Tempe, Arizona. I'm excited about that. We're going to talk about the portal starting tomorrow evening or Sunday morning or Saturday morning, one of the two. We have a lot going on, and I'm excited for all of you people to get to know Alex Dono, the host of Locked On Hurricanes. He's one of my favorite Locked On hosts, so I'm looking forward to the crossover with him. All the Georgia fans, I hope you are watching this program just as you promised that you were going to do all week, or are you going to be like the LSU fans that say you're going to show up and then not show up? You just got your tail whipped. And you get to watch Ole Miss football for the next 2 games from your couch. And that makes me happy because of how disrespectful you were. You would not believe the number of DMs that got sent to me with the way Georgia media started to talk about Ole Miss the way this was an outclass thing. Ole Miss might as well, or Georgia might have well been playing Tulane against in this game. All because you looked at the fourth quarter like it was something that you did. It was something that Ole Miss did. And that is what you saw in the fourth quarter tonight. And they completely took over this game at the end. Georgia, all season long, made a habit out of coming back and pulling irons out of the fire and all of that stuff, making plays in the fourth quarter to win games. And they almost did it tonight. Gunnar Stockton is a baller. I will not hear any different. He just makes plays. He's not as good as Trinidad Chambliss, though. Even Gunnar Stockton would tell you that. No running back that Georgia has is as good as Kewan Lacy. And tonight, Ole Miss's defense was better than the vaunted Georgia defense. And because of that, Ole Miss kind of went up and down the field and had their way. There was a couple of mistakes, like in the second quarter, that you thought Ole Miss was going to get in trouble. And honestly, if Ole Miss didn't do that, they would have probably won this game by 3 touchdowns. If we're going to be real about it, that is how one-sided this game was for Ole Miss. And we're going to talk about the stats in just a second and show you exactly what I mean by that. But if the time management stuff and the drop passes and stuff like that didn't happen in the second quarter, the fumble return for a touchdown, Ole Miss just completely destroys Georgia. They didn't necessarily belong in the same field with them, but they made plays at the end to make it at least interesting. And Ole Miss ended up winning the game 39-34. A game that remarkably looked like I predicted all week long. Now, I got the score wrong in my prediction. I thought it'd be 27-21, but it ended up being 39-34. Ole Miss made plays. Once they figured out Georgia's run game and what they were doing, Ole Miss's defensive line was better than Georgia's offensive line, and they took over the game, made Georgia one-dimensional, forced Gunnar Stockton to beat you, which, to be fair, he almost did. It was one pass that Whiteout Williams had good coverage on away from that happening. But the call by Charlie Weiss on that last drive, throwing the ball downfield to Deshaun Stribling to get into field goal range, and how nails is Lucas Carnero. He's a machine. He's the best kicker in the country. Ole Miss has the best quarterback, the best running back, and the best kicker in the country right now. Not even close. And Kewan Lacy played his tail off. I hate that he fumbled that ball because I thought that was going to be his legacy. And I posted on social media that if Ole Miss loses this game, it will be because of 5 minutes in the second quarter that it allowed it to happen. Ole Miss came out in the second half and dominated that football game. Their offense was nearly unstoppable. Trinidad Chambliss went full Archie Manning in New Orleans, running around, all of this stuff. If you don't believe me, just look at some Archie highlights and then look at what Trinidad did. Amazing. Absolutely fantastic. And I am here for it. Kewan Lacy ran the ball on the Georgia vaunted run defense to the tune of getting, let's see, what did he get in the game? Let's see. I need to close some windows real quick. We'll see. I don't have it up at the moment, but it was close. I will look it up and get it shortly. But yeah, we had too many windows open right there. But Kewan Lacy had a day running the ball, and he was the receiver on the crazy Trinidad Chambliss Archie Manning stuff. And including one really big first down that led to an amazing sequence. Like, everybody likes to talk about those Jevon Sneed passes against LSU in 2008, about how perfect it was. I have never seen 3 plays in a row that are remotely like what Trinidad Chambliss was able to pull off. I mean, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Scrambling around, hitting Kewan, getting the first down, the long pass to Trey Wallace. It was worth it. It was awesome. And it got to the point when Ole Miss went up 34-24, that was like, holy crap, Ole Miss is about to do this. Ole Miss has the better football team. Because even Ole Miss fans thought that what happened in Athens wasn't the fluke. That was the normal thing. What we saw in the Sugar Bowl is that was a fluke, that fourth quarter. And Pete Golding, listen, I'm going to be real about something. They had some issues with clock management in the first half, and the going for 2 in the first half. I was not a fan of that. Pete Golding coached Kirby Smart under a bus, essentially, in this game. Kirby was the one who flinched. And you know what point that I knew that Pete Golding was going to win this game? When Kirby called the fake punt. Because you don't try to trick a team that you think you can beat straight up. You don't. You try to trick a team that you're trying to steal a possession. because you know there's a good chance they're going to win. Even Kirby knew that Ole Miss was the better team tonight. Pete Golding and Ole Miss had an amazing game plan for the game. And when we come back, we will go over the stats. And don't forget, comment. And there's no way I'm going to get to all of these comments. So please, though, when you comment, please put where you're commenting from. I am going to stay longer than 30 minutes tonight, and I'm going to get through as many as I can, but no guarantees. Over the course of the next 7 days, we are going to find a way to do some lives and have some interaction with fans of what's going on, because this is officially the greatest football team in Ole Miss history. I don't care about winning a Dunkel national championship or a perfect season in 1962. It's not in my lifetime. I know it was important and all of that. We are at the point where we need to start thinking about statues. Seriously, that's where we are. We are 2 wins away from a Disney movie being made about this team. I'm serious about that. To a win over Miami and a win over either Oregon or Indiana, and you are that away from having a Disney movie written about this program. Absolutely nuts. Absolutely crazy what's going on. Anyway, when we come back, we are going to look at some of the stats from the game and talk about what's going on there. And just stick around. We'll talk about it soon. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the game tips off, FanDuel is giving fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. That's become appointment television or appointment viewing. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The time is perfect right before the games, right before the weekend starts. So it adds a little bit of extra energy, extra juice to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check out the FanDuel app to see what is dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern. It's a little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. We get to find out also from FanDuel what the spread will be against the Miami Hurricanes. I think Ole Miss might end up being favored in that game, but I'm kind of excited to see exactly what the U is going to bring to the table. That is NBA Happy Hour. It's only on FanDuel, the official sports book partner of the NBA. Hey, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it keeps all of this free. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, just for $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonolemess.supercast.com or check the link down in the description. Also, the All Access tier, we have Corey Burton, former high school coach that does game breakdowns. We have Mike Huseman. He's going to be talking about the transfer portal. I think an article is going to be released to All Access members tomorrow morning about potential transfer portal targets. And we also have Dalen Flowers, who is currently in the press box at New Orleans. So we'll hear from him as well. So it should be pretty interesting. All right. If you look at the stats of this game, this was actually a fairly one-sided game, honestly. If you look at first downs, it was pretty close, but this was really similar, in my opinion, to the game that was played in Oxford. And Kirby Smart has not beaten Ole Miss in any place other than Sanford Stadium inside of their massive home field advantage that they have. Kirby Smart has not beaten Ole Miss. And in many cases, he's been beaten down by Ole Miss. But 3 losses. He lost to Hugh Freeze, he lost to Lane Kiffin, and he's lost to Pete Golding. Ole Miss had 22 first downs. Georgia had 23. 111 yards rushing for Ole Miss against the Georgia team that's pretty good against the run. Georgia only had 124 yards. If you remember all week, I said if Ole Miss holds them to under 150 yards, Ole Miss was going to win the game. Ta-da! That happened. Ole Miss had 362 yards passing to 231 yards for the Georgia Bulldogs. Ole Miss had a total of 473 yards of total offense. Georgia had 355. Both teams had one turnover, although the turnover for Georgia was on a fourth down that if he would have been down and not fumbled, Ole Miss would have gotten the ball at essentially the same spot. That ended up being the touchdown, the play before the touchdown, essentially, that put them up 34-24. So that was actually a really big play in the game. But you look at these stats, you can see it was kind of one-sided in this game. And that's with the late run that Georgia made. They scored 10 points in the fourth quarter to make it a 34-34 game with 56 seconds. Pete Golding used timeouts to make sure those 56 seconds were on the clock for Ole Miss. Trinidad Chambliss led it down. Lucas Carnero hit a 47-yard field goal after having the two longest field goals in Sugar Bowl history. Again, best kicker in the country. Ole Miss is exactly what you want them to be going into this game against Miami and then going into potentially another game after that. It is really cool that the season is at this point. It is really cool that Ole Miss is the flag bearer for the Southeastern Conference after what happened with the SEC and the media partners kind of pushing Lane Kiffin to LSU while trying to push him to coach at Ole Miss. It was really weird. It's nice that Ole Miss is the standard bearer. It's nice that Ole Miss is going to get to wear the powder helmets and the red jerseys and the gray pants that they want to. That is awesome. It is nice that this, in my opinion, Georgia was the toughest team in the bracket. It was going to be a hard game. And it's nice that whenever you lined it up on the field, Ole Miss kind of took them apart, made them one-dimensional. And if you want to beat Mike Bobo, it's simple. Take away his running game. If you take away his running game, he can't beat you. He doesn't know how to use explosive wide receivers. He doesn't know how to use Zachariah Branch, if we're going to be honest about it. Georgia should have weapons all over the place. Zachariah Branch is special. He might be the best football player in the entire Southeastern Conference. He's hardly used. He catches a screen pass now and then. I don't know why he doesn't get used. They're throwing on tight ends and all of this over and over again, but they will not go for explosive plays for some reason. And because of that, if you take away the run game, Georgia's pretty much toast. Traditionally, if you just look at what's going on, they're toast if they can't run the ball. And they couldn't run the ball. They lost Drew Bobo, and they had a freshman center, I think, in the game. And Xavier Harris was lined up on him, and he ate his lunch all day. He did. It was as simple as that. All right, when we come back, your comments. Remember, there's no way I'm going to be able to get to all these comments. I apologize for that. We are going to stay for a little while tonight because of how many people that are in the stream, because that game was awesome. It was an instant classic, and I look forward to a second and a third and a fourth viewing over the course of the weekend. But I am going to get to as many comments as I can get to. Tuesday night, we will do a live show with comments that are going to be in there, so please tune into that. Let's celebrate this. This is officially the greatest moment of our football program's history. And like I said, I get that they won national championships back in the 60s. I get that. But not in a playoff, to where winning a Sugar Bowl is not the end. It's not the end of the goal. You get to go into another thing. So Ole Miss is going to go to a Sugar Bowl after hosting a home playoff game and now get to go to a Fiesta Bowl, and that's the first time they've ever been to a Fiesta Bowl. And if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, but I'm not mistaken, that would leave the Rose Bowl as the one major bowl that Ole Miss has never gone to. So we'll talk about that in just a second, so stick around. You know, there's nothing like college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all, the energy in the bands, the moments you remember forever, like tonight. But actually getting tickets, well, that used to be the frustrating part with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock some amazing college football events like a Sugar Bowl or maybe a Fiesta Bowl. You can check out those experiences in just a few taps. I opened up the Game Time app, and if you look at the upcoming college football games, for the Fiesta Bowl, maybe the Peach Bowl. It is there in Game Time. The app is incredibly easy to use. I went from browsing to buying in just minutes. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, so let's get into the comment section. Like I said, I'm going to try and go through as many of these as I can go through, but there's no way, there's absolutely no chance that I'm going to be able to get through all of them, and I apologize for that. Let's start it off from the beginning. Doug Wallace from Benton, Arkansas. Impressive coaching. Truly a great game in spite of costly mistakes. This team has it. Yeah, it's a team of destiny at this point. Like I said, this team is 2 wins away from a Disney movie that's going to do well, to where Lane Kiffin's playing basically the part of Jafar and Pete Golding is Aladdin. I mean, that is what we're dealing with at the moment. And this Ole Miss team, I would not put them beating the Miami Hurricanes out of the realm of possibility. Of course not. Ole Miss is in a colored jersey in that game. They're going to be wearing their red jersey when we thought they would be wearing road jerseys throughout this whole thing. And at this point, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. I'm sure Alex Dono at Locked On Hurricanes, he's feeling it too. And Spencer McLaughlin at Locked On Ducks. And I don't know who the Locked On Indiana guy is, but the Locked On Hoosiers guy, I'm sure everybody is like, whoa, we're going to win it all this year, because that's it. There's exactly 4 teams left. Everybody else is on the couch. Georgia is worried about the transfer portal tomorrow morning. That is their main interest. They have no more football games to play. None. Their season is over. Their time is finished. Ole Miss, Indiana, Miami, and Oregon, they all have a role to play moving forward. Ole Miss was the best SEC team this year. I think that was proven. I think the fourth quarter against Georgia and Athens was a fluke. And that got laid bare in this game as well. All right. Somebody said, let's see. Championship Wrestling South says Kiffin would have lost that game going forward on 4th down instead of taking points. Absolutely. 100%. He would have big game Lane that game. That's not a game that Lane Kiffin would have won. It just wouldn't. Drop passes and things like that, he would have panicked. And I thought in the second quarter we were about to panic anyway. But Pete got them pulling the rope in the same direction again and just locked it up. And his fourth quarter time management was absolutely primo. It was wonderful. Even this throw it out of bounds thing that they were doing to take time off the clock, to allow that to quarterback to lay out to stop, essentially, because they couldn't run the ball because they didn't have a timeout. It was fantastic. It was amazing. It was pretty good. Mark Walsh from St. Louis, unreal, so happy, but I hate the national disrespect. Pisses me off. Best quarterback in football, 8th in the Heisman. F that, so glad we won. Yeah, he's the best player in college football. He should have won the Heisman. The fact that everybody was concentrated on Lane Kiffin's job search in November instead of Trinidad Chambliss, what he was doing and being high on the Heisman, I don't know if I'll ever forgive Lane for that. I mean, that was bad. Shaka Ziki says, eat your heart out, Lane. You should be ashamed of yourself. Kurt Signetti can win in Indiana and you can't at Ole Miss. You're not wrong. Timothy Shirley says, we didn't go for 2 in the early in the game. It would have been over. And that face mask call too. That face mask was egregious. Listen, I don't do conspiracy theories. Not really. As like, okay, the officials miss calls because they're just human. They're not very good. You know, that's kind of my thing. But there were several things that happened at the end of that game that kind of makes me go, Yeah. Because you could see some things getting sideways from time to time. It was nuts. Ole Miss fan says, from Mooreville, Mississippi, we finally did it, played our hearts out tonight, and loved every second of it. They said there was about 70% Ole Miss fans in the Superdome. You want to talk about Rebel Nation showing out? We talked about it all week. We said it was going to be a home game for Ole Miss. I don't know why you didn't believe that. Corey Burton, who helps with our All Access channel, posted out. He did like the crossover for the Georgia, so we could kind of get a college football coaches or high school football coaches view of the Georgia Bulldogs and what's going on. And he was like, hey, Georgia's going to travel because they take over every stadium they go to. Not that one. That is props to the Ole Miss fans for going and showing out. There are going to be videos made up. And can you imagine how good the season is going to be on Wednesday? All of this is, like I said, it's a movie. It's fantastic. And Trinidad Chambliss going Archie in the Superdome in New Orleans is one of the coolest things I have ever seen. And I'm too young to have seen Archie Manning live play. He was with Houston whenever I was like 4 and 5 years old. Okay. So I never saw him with the Saints. I never saw him in his prime where everything was clicking. But I've seen tape, the underarm pass, the running around, all of the stuff. Trinidad Chambliss did exactly what Archie does in this game. And at that point, you're like, we're going to win this game because there's no way that this would happen and Ole Miss would not win the game, if we're going to be honest about it. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. SR 21968 says, Yahoo! I was so stressed the last 5 minutes. Yes. I thought, everybody has the little "we are Ole Miss" thing that they want to talk about, and they always do that in those moments. But on that third down, whenever they threw the pass, I just knew that there was going to be a wide open guy that they caught a touchdown. And I was thankful that Ole Miss was going to have a minute to try and go down the field. But when Whiteette Williams had it covered and Gunnar Stockton tried to force a ball in and they kicked a field goal to tie it up, I was like, well, we got a chance, because all you have to do is get to the 40-yard line and he's already made 2 field goals from there. You got a chance. And they completed that pass to Sean Stribling. That might be the best play call of the entire season this year. It was fantastic. It was amazing. I don't know how you sit on it in a bag until that moment. It was fantastic. And all the props go to Charlie Weiss for just calling 2 fantastic games over the last 2 weeks outside of the shadow of he who should not be named. So that's interesting. So let's see. Timothy Shirley says, great win, great comeback, all the time, signs of a champions. Yes. Yes, going forward and forth on our territory, not a great choice. Yeah, I didn't like that. It's one of those things that you do stuff like that when you don't think you can win straight up. And whenever Kirby faked the punt, I was like, Kirby doesn't think he can win this game straight up. And when that happens, you happen to see the Ole Miss defense raise their game. Defense played fantastic in the second half. Just played fantastic. Let's see. AACP2L says our fans took over the building. Lane Kiffin must be fuming right now. Yeah, it probably is. We're going to get some sort of a tweet, some sort of a trolling tweet. Hembro says, congratulations from Grand Rapids, Trinidad. Too proud, buddy, as always. Just keep doing what you're doing, and the natty is yours. SR21 says that was definitely the best game of the playoffs so far. Yeah, it was a fantastic game. That might have been one of the best games I've seen, honestly, especially when you take the stakes in there as well. It was absolutely fantastic. And Ole Miss winning that, it was awesome. Willis 9542, the "We Are Ole Miss" moment happened. We got over the hump and won the game. It's a good day to be a rebel. Let's see. Respect the SEC love from the guy from Tennessee. Yeah. Tennessee fans happy for Ole Miss. Even saw some Mississippi State fans actually rooting for Ole Miss in this game. I just want to give Lane Kiffin all the props in the world for making it a situation that Mississippi State fans would root for Ole Miss in anything. I don't know if I completely believe it, but I heard that. USMC Bat says, glad we cleaned up a lot in the second half. Leaving the game clock at 1 second 3 times was weird. Glad we silenced the doubters. Hotty toddy from Satellite Beach, Florida. Yes. And hope Chambliss faces Indiana and beats the Heisman quarterback, right? And need to make the desert a home game. I have thoughts, okay? I think that Tempe, Arizona is going to be the lowest traveled thing for Ole Miss fans out of the games all possible. I think Ole Miss is going to well represent. I'm not saying they won't, but I think out of the 4 games, it's going to be the lowest attendance for Ole Miss because that's the one that is in the Pacific time zone, essentially. But also, if you win that game, you have the national championship. And if Ole Miss plays for the national title in Miami, that place is going to look like Omaha did whenever Ole Miss played against Oklahoma, where there was, 75, 80% of the stadium were Ole Miss fans. And I think if Ole Miss plays for a national title, they are going to second mortgage their house. They're going to do whatever's necessary to get down to Miami. That's my opinion on that. Let's see. One more Rebel says, also glad the face mask that wasn't called didn't impact the result. Do you remember the 2014 game between Ole Miss and Alabama, that upset game, the Katy Perry game and all that? There was a face mask in that game where an Ole Miss running back fumbled the ball and Alabama recovered it. Ole Miss ended up winning the game. It also was not called. It was also a blatant face mask. So it was Kirby Smart. It was a similar type situation, even a similar type play. But Ole Miss was able to overcome it, and they overcame all of this. So it was interesting. Willis 9542, first time appearance in the Fiesta Bowl. I'm bringing the salsa. Yeah, I'm probably going to do the paste picante sauce a couple of times as well and eat my Tostitos. Is it still the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl? Well, we'll have to find that out. We'll have to kind of get up to speed on that. Rebel and Dave says that face mask was a garbage call. It was absolutely terrible. It was the first time that I started thinking about conspiracy theories, essentially. It is absolutely weird. Shakazaki, Miami will be tough, but it's better Miami than Indiana or Oregon. I don't know that. I'm going to have to wait because Corey Burton's going to have to do some film breakdown of what we're looking for. I know that there's a chance that Carson Beck will just throw you the ball. And if Ole Miss is in the backfield like they were against the Georgia Bulldogs tonight, they're going to do work. But Miami has the best offensive line possibly in the entire college football playoff. And they have Mark Fletcher, who's good at running the football. So the defense front seven is another front seven game. And we said going into August, this Ole Miss football team will go as far as the front seven will take them. It absolutely took apart the Georgia Bulldogs to the point where they just quit trying to run the ball. Every now and then they would gash Ole Miss for 13, 14 yards, but then there'd be like 3 runs for no gain. So it'll be interesting to see. I have to look at what's going on there. Like I said, I'm not going to get to all these comments. I apologize. Robert Veethers from Litchfield Park. What a game. Got some questionable calls, especially that last Georgia drive. But I've got my tickets for the Fiesta Bowl. It's awesome. Bass Huey says, I think we can pick off Beck. Yes, absolutely. James Hall from Brookhaven, great game, hotty toddy. I want the media's reaction, especially Clint and Daniels. I think they do a post-game show. I see no reason why you shouldn't crash their live show with what's going on. They should probably hear about what they said, in my opinion. Mark Wall says, Destiny team, America's team, LFG, Ole Miss beats Georgia. You're absolutely correct there. It's amazing. It's amazing. And, of course, the last thing that we're going to do tonight from Shaka Zika, stupid media. Yeah, completely stupid media. It's absolutely nuts. Let me go through the comments and see if there's anything else in there that we need to address real quick. What's going on? Let's see. Luke Shaw says, best game of my life. Yeah, I think it was the best game of my life, too. I don't know that I've seen a football game that was that good. Georgia played hard. Georgia played real hard. Kirby Smart's really good at what he does. Georgia's really good at what they do. Ole Miss tonight just wanted it more. You know, you make that joke all the time, but Pete Golding talks about the teams that win in the playoffs are the ones that want to keep playing. And Ole Miss wanted to keep playing more than Georgia. And that's how they were able to win that game. Let's see, Gary Vinking says from Nesbitt, Mississippi, how do the Rebels winning affect Kiffin's scheme for the portal tomorrow? See, Ole Miss, it's not just a portal window for 15 days. Okay. So if Ole Miss goes to the national championship and just because players didn't go into the portal, doesn't mean they can't go into the portal. You have 5 days after your last game that the portal window opens up for what's going on. So I wouldn't know that anything's affecting anything. So pretty good. Rebel and Dave says we need to go rip the Locked On Georgia guys. They said we had no chance. They also said we were a total joke, if we're going to be real. It was crazy. All the dinosaurs were voting against Ole Miss, all of that stuff as well. And now the media is saying that Miami is just a bridge too far and Ole Miss will never beat the 10th seeded Miami Hurricanes. They're just too good. And I guess we should be okay and happy with all of that. So anyway, thank you for tuning in to Locked On Ole Miss. We're going to have a portal show on Friday evening with David Johnson of Ole Miss 365 talking about what's going on. Make sure you subscribe, follow the show so you'll always get the latest episodes. We're on all the social channels, so check that out as well. And also, did Locked On Ole Miss make your Spotify Wrapped? Prove it on social media. To secure a free month of our brand new Everydayers Club, just tag our National Locked On Podcast Network and they will send you the code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get ad-free and exclusive access to a members-only Discord channel. For those of you on YouTube, we're going to send you over to the first 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On College Football. Hotty toddy, everybody. Every game that Ole Miss plays is the biggest in program history, and they just won it tonight. And Trinidad Chambliss looking like Archie Manning in the Sugar Bowl is something that I will never, ever forget. It was absolutely amazing, and there's just no getting around it. I hope everybody enjoys this night. Go back, rewatch the game, have fun. It was awesome. But get ready for the Miami Hurricanes and the Fiesta Bowl coming up in about a week. Thank you so much. Hotty toddy, everybody.